have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, welcome, 870-275-9799. Morning. How's everybody doing out there? My name's Paul. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. The telephone number is 870-275-9799. We got a great show for you. I've got a lot of news to get to. Some interesting Arkansas developments, more indictments. Well, one indictment. Ben Burris, the orthodontist that was implicated in bribing Jeremy Hutchinson to alter the Dental Practices Act, something that Conduit News uncovered just by, basically a random interview where the allegation was first made to me on this program by another dentist who said it was just common knowledge that Jeremy Hutchinson was paid six figures by Ben Burris to alter the Dental Practices Act. This came out on the show back in, was it 2017, Joe? I think December 2017 is when that happened. What's the date on that?
December 14, 2017.
Yeah, December 14, 2017, we did an interview. We'll get to all of that, but very interesting. And I'll explain that post here in a minute, Joe, to you, what that means. So the thing is, I wonder what implications this has with, again, Dr. Ben Burris now being indicted. He was mentioned in the Jeremy Hutchinson indictment or plea back when, but he was just, he wasn't actually named. People were having to use context clues to figure out who it was, an orthodontist, And of course, now Ben Burris resides in Florida. According to Talk Business and Politics, he's got offices in Northwest Arkansas still. Used to have offices in Northeast Arkansas as well. And if you go read these text messages that's in the indictment, it's pretty clear that this was, kind of an open and shut case. Paying Jeremy Hutchinson extra money. It all started with a $20,000 check to kind of get things going, but paying Jeremy Hutchinson a retainer so that he would pass laws favorable to his client. You cannot do that. Now, this indictment comes on the heels of what we were reading in the paper on Sunday that had to do with trial attorney John Goodson. Because of unsealed documents, we know that they had some sort of law firm to law firm agreement where John Goodson would pay Jeremy $20,000 a month. A month. And in those documents, there was also work on a specific law for Goodson called Goodson's Law, according to witnesses for the government. That's what they said Jeremy was calling a certain law, that had to do with tort or, not necessarily tort reform, but you get the idea. Making it easier for a trial attorney to operate. That's what's all alleged in the documents. Yesterday, and I didn't say this, I probably should have, but yesterday while I was going over the story of John Goodson, I kind of thought to myself, well, nothing's going to happen here because nothing has happened to Ben Burris. If something was going to happen, if John, because John Goodson, the attorney, has not been charged with any crime or anything like that. And the newspaper and other publications made sure that you knew that. And you should know that. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I just don't think anything's going to happen to this guy because nothing has happened to Ben Burris. And wouldn't you know it, 2 days after the story on John Goodson, essentially the implication is paying Senator Jeremy Hutchinson extra money to do legislative work, take legislative action. 2 days later, Ben Burris is in fact indicted for doing the same thing. Now we'll see. I mean, I will tell you this: if Ben Burris gets indicted and John Goodson, nothing happens to him, it will probably be because of that contract that they had between law firm to law firm. I mean, the Arkansas Bar Association saying those contracts are those are acceptable. Those types of contracts are acceptable, but they caution you need to not even have the appearance of impropriety. Don't even have the appearance of it. Well, the appearance of impropriety is not illegal. So we'll wait and see. I will tell you this, wheels of justice certainly turn very slowly, but when they come around, they're here. And so I think it's a good thing that this is, happening the way it is. Slowly but surely, it is occurring, and these deeds that are done in darkness are being brought to the light, and you can't be upset about that. You can't be upset about that at all. Everybody knew this was going on. Everybody. Nobody did anything. You know what I mean? I mean, the government has done something, but I'm talking about the people, the other legislators around this environment that knew it was going on. How do you make Jeremy Hutchinson the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee when everybody knew this type of stuff was going on? This is some of the same people who were there, who knew about this corruption, not with just Jeremy, but with others, are still there and are still now trying to say, oh, well, now we'll reform ethics now that it's all been caught. We'll police each other. I'm sorry. No, you will not police each other. Love to eat crow on that one, by the way. I'd love to eat crow. I'd love for some senator to stand up and be like, hey, there's something bad going on here. I'm filing an ethics complaint. They could have done, without any reforms at all, any one of these guys could have filed an ethics complaint against one of their colleagues because they knew they were on the take. That didn't happen, did it? No. We'll have more on this story. It's a developing story later. We also have a story about the ophthalmologists they've got their ballot. Now, they still got to get their signatures counted, right? But Michael Wickline reported that the ophthalmologists have got their ballot title approved to try to repeal the bill that was passed out of both committees, both chambers, and signed by the governor that deregulated optometry to standards of what optometrists practice, and are trained to do and what they practice in other states. And the ophthalmologists are upset about it, very upset about it. They don't want you to have the choice to go to an optometrist. They don't want. They really are anti-freedom when it comes to. Now they're going to claim they're protecting you, but as I've told you, they are all about the money. I mean that's just not. I'm not saying that ophthalmologists. Anybody that has the government protecting their pocketbook, they're going to be able to be called all about the money when it comes to this. They're going to hide. That's what these licensing boards do. We've done parodies on them. I mean, they claim that it's about public safety, but it's really about the money. It's just the way it is. I'm not trying to single out ophthalmologists as being greedy. Anybody would do the same thing. Any profession would do the same thing if they had an advantage in the marketplace and the government was the one protecting that advantage. Okay? You guys are acting like that optometrists are like, gonna experiment with bloodletting or something, or leeches. It's you guys are demagoguing the issue that was highly debated. You're taking the one thing the medical society lost, and you're trying to, essentially rewrite what just was debated, in the wake of all of this. And I think it's very frustrating. We'll tell you about that a little bit more as well. Again, the headline with panels okay, eye care issue clears one hurdle for 2020 ballot. All right, real quick. Did anybody see what the president tweeted? You guys have got to see this. This is hilarious. Now, oh, 1 second, by the way. 1 second. So Trump tweets hilarious meme of Greenland. Leftists explode. Ryan Saavedra, listen to this. President Donald Trump tweeted a hilarious meme of Greenland on Monday, which caused those on the political left to freak out as political talks about his desire to purchase the world's largest island continue. So Greenland, okay, Greenland is covered in ice. Now, I don't know about you. I thought we already owned Greenland. Now, I'm not technically, but you know what I mean. Like, I thought we already had, we do have a military base there, so maybe that's why. I guess, has anyone ever seen Mission Impossible 1 with Tom Cruise? Okay, so the guy that plays the character, William Donalow, who loses the knock list, is, when Tom Cruise comes down from the ceiling. Okay, once the CIA, once they figure out they've lost the list, Tom Cruise is infiltrated him. They say the main guy is like, I want this guy manning a tower in Greenland by the end of the day, or manning a station in Greenland by the end of the day. So I just always kind of assumed that Greenland was kind of already ours anyway, and nobody wants to live in Greenland because it's covered in ice. By the way, the photos of Greenland, this photo right here, scroll down. Here it is. This is what President Trump tweeted. By the way, that looks like the new Asgard, almost. It does, right? So, I promise not to do this to Greenland, is what the president tweeted, and put a big Trump hotel right on the beaches of Greenland. And this is hilarious. This is very funny. This shows that the president has a sense of humor. We already know all that, but wouldn't you know it? I mean, this is trolling content. I mean, for people that just hate the president on a personal level, right? They can't stand this kind of stuff. And so you have the left out there freaking out. Let's see here. The Robin Canner, who works for Beto O'Rourke. By the way, Beto O'Rourke was in Arkansas. Did you hear about this? Yeah. Yeah, he was in Arkansas. He was at a gun show, and he was, I know, he was at a gun show in Arkansas, and he talked about how it's not right in America that you can buy a AR-15 for $395, but insulin costs $495 a month. And then he literally compared the two, okay? Like he compared, hang on a second. Is this the photo? He compared the two like living or dying. Yeah, here we go. Insulin costs $450 a month, and AR-15 costs $395 for a lifetime. It shouldn't be more affordable to kill than to stay alive. Can you understand? He put both of those issues together. And then at the gun show, he had like, we'll show you the photos, but this sign that says, $395, and he wasn't really actually wanting to debate with anybody. He's just, in Arkansas. But see, Democrats are coming to Arkansas because of the primary, And so what's interesting is if there are any Republican primaries out there, the Democrats that might vote in a Republican primary because the primaries are not closed, they're going to be focused on their guys, They're not going to be crossing over, voting for a Republican.
Beto's in the wrong place trying to peddle that ideology.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
And also, he doesn't... This comparison just doesn't make any sense because it's two very different products controlled by two very different markets.
Insulin.
Exactly.
Insulin and AR-15s. Yeah.
Again, two very different products controlled by two very different markets.
I know, man. This is what the Democrats do, though. They take items... They compare apples to oranges all the time, to prove their political points.
It's apples and hand grenades.
Yeah, there you go. Apples and hand grenades. Those are kind of similar. They both fit in your hand. Yeah. Anyway, so Beto O'Rourke, campaign worker. Can you believe someone sat down in the White House, quite possibly the West Wing, and made this graphic, then sent it to the President of the United States of America and was like, let's tweet it? And the President of the United States of America was like, hell yeah. You know what? I don't even care. These people have such an inflated view about what the President of the United States does. Like, they have this inflated view of like this, can you believe they would make a meme in the White House? Yeah, pretty much. Pretty sure, it's just like any other office staffed by the same human beings that have the same, I don't know. It's crazy. Double standards everywhere. We're going to take a break. We're going to reset. This is Conduit News. My name's Paul, and we'll be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Welcome back to the show. We got Congressman Bruce Westerman is back with us. Bruce, how are you this morning?
Good morning, Paul. I'm doing well. Good to be with you.
Yes, sir. It is always a pleasure to have you on. So I know things in D.C., especially when the House of Representatives are dominated by Democrats. I know it's tough, but what are some of the things that you're working on right now?
Well, we're on our so-called August recess, so spending a lot of time in the district and getting out and visiting constituents. Been doing a lot of tours. I'm actually out in California this morning because an organization called the Western Caucus, which is about 150 House members and I think 20 or so senators who work on issues focused on mainly natural resources and rural issues. I told them yesterday you could call this the Rural Caucus or the Natural Resources Caucus, but it's been around for quite some time, and these are issues that are
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Okay, so you guys remember when, I guess this was not the last Rick Crawford interview that we did on China, but we did another one on the one before that. And in that one, he mentioned that the Chinese are coming over and using American publications, and they're buying ads placed in American agriculture publications that are, and these publications are taking the Chinese money, to place articles, to op-eds that are disparaging, the administration. Basically, it's an effort to try to turn farmers who are Trump supporters against the president. And so, this was, I had never heard that until Congressman Crawford said that. By the way, he spoke to some more farmers yesterday. Talk Business and Politics has a piece on that. This is interesting, because Arkansas is such a highly agricultural-based state, and you look at what is attempting. Really, I think most of the focus is in Iowa. They look at that, and China says that if they could get Iowa to come from the Trump column, that would be good for the Chinese to try to unseat the president. They're gonna have an uphill battle, obviously, in Arkansas, but still, this is news to me, and it's very disturbing. And that's when I saw this headline about what Twitter has done during the Hong Kong protests. Hong Kong is, they're in a situation where they are trying their best to maintain the freedoms they have left, if not try to restore some of them. They're waving the American flag. And you know what? That's such a stark contrast with what's going on in Portland, what's going on with Antifa, and these people that are stomping on our flag, they're burning our flag, but people who are yearning to actually be free, they're waving our flag over in Hong Kong. In our own country, we're treating it like garbage in some factions. The President of the United States is weighing whether or not to declare Antifa as a terrorist organization. And if that happens, which I think it should, that's going to, basically mobilize a lot more resources that are going to be at the fingertips of the feds to go after Antifa. But Twitter has accepted Chinese money in order to basically put out ads that are smearing the Hong Kong protesters. Right? So when the left last week, these leftist publications were criticizing the president, saying he's not taking a strong enough stance on Hong Kong. And I and others said, well, hang on, wait a second. We don't even know what's going on behind the scenes. The president has this trade situation. He didn't go through with the new tariffs. Let's think about this. Maybe how Hong Kong has something to do with it. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes, as we talked about yesterday with Clark Kendall. Twitter is taking Chinese money so that they'll smear the Hong Kong protesters. This from Lucas Nolan. Twitter has accepted advertising from China's largest state news agency, so a Communist Party state news agency, attacking pro-democracy protesters. The ads, known as promoted tweets, call the Hong Kong protests blatant violence. TechCrunch reports that Twitter is currently facing criticism for allowing promoted tweet advertising by China's largest state news agency. The promoted tweets aim to smear pro-democracy demonstrations by protesters in Hong Kong as violent, even though recent rallies, which have drawn as many as 1.7 million people, have been reported as largely peaceful by the international media. Promoted tweets, ads from China Xinhua News, an agency run by the Chinese Communist Party, were shared by the Twitter account Pinboard, a bookmarking service founded by Marcin Klagowski. Twitter is blacklisted by the Chinese Communist government, completely blocked by the Great Chinese Firewall. Anyway, it's just another piece in their arsenal, really. Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms.
and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
Very important to the West, forestry being one of the big ones, and water issues and mining. And we had a meeting out here to visit some of the fire damaged areas and also to see some of the work that the Forest Service has been doing since some of those policies that I've worked on so much got passed in the Farm Bill and in some other pieces of legislation. So it's been a pretty informative trip. I've got another tour this morning, and then we're doing a press conference on some new forestry stuff, and then I'll be heading back home to Arkansas. So it's
well, first of all,
been a busy week.
Yeah, thank you for calling in. I mean, it's 5:30 where you are right now then, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Nice. Good way to start the morning.
I appreciate
for a little
you getting
while.
up so early. Okay. Well, so, hey, speaking on the forestry thing, you being a forest management.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. We were, and I meant to tease this earlier, and we're having trouble with our phone systems completing an international phone call. So that's a problem. We are talking with, or we're supposed to be talking with. His name is Vade Cedarom, and he's a Canadian filmmaker. So we're not talking about a giant international call. We're talking about Canada here. But we wanted to have him on because he's doing a documentary, making a documentary about male bias against, or I guess court bias against men in family courts, right? So anyway, I think we do have him on the line, though. So Joe's getting him in the system. So we have successfully overcome our technical difficulties, and so that's a good thing. So I want to introduce you to Vade Cedarom. Vade, how are you this morning?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing good. What can you tell us about this documentary film that you're attempting to make, and why did you want to make it?
Well, it's we've shot about maybe 20% of the footage we need so far, and this is we have a Kickstarter right now as we speak. It's live, and we're trying to raise the money to finish the film. And of course, the topic is about family court, and I'm investigating a possible bias against men in family court. As to why I wanted to do it is basically because I did feel this pull after many years of myself growing up as a teenager, growing up and hearing that I had some older cousins who had been through a tough divorce. I had no idea what that meant at the time. But now I'm 45 years old, and years ago when I stumbled on this topic, I have some friends who have been through divorce, and they told me firsthand that that without getting into to make a long story short, it is no fun to say the very least. And the fact that there's a possible bias against men in family court, I thought was a great angle because it goes so counter to what we've been led to believe, that men are very privileged.
Yeah, no doubt. That certainly is what we hear all the time now in society. The title of the film, Man Down, A Closer Look at Family Court. We went ahead, we posted your Kickstarter page just now on the Conduit News Facebook page. And so what are some of the consequences, if there is a bias against men in family court, how does that hurt our society? How does that hurt our families?
Well, the most glaring one could be that is the suicide rates. The suicide rates for men after divorce versus women after divorce. The statistic from England is 8 to 9 times higher. That one, and of course, I believe between the ages of 40 and 50, it's one of the highest. The divorce rate is particularly high. Wouldn't surprise me that's maybe the time when a lot of men do get divorced. But the effects of fatherlessness in the families. I mean, we know now there's a great book by Paul Rayburn, Do Fathers Matter? And we know now that when fathers are not in the lives of, not in their children's lives in a fairly integral way, it does lead to, there's a higher chance of teen pregnancy, there's a higher chance of boys getting involved in gangs, there's a higher chance of boys committing violent crimes. Also, the high school dropout rate is higher. Across the board, two-parent families usually fare quite well. So those are just two of the main ones, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is this phrase, this acronym MGTOW mean, and what is that all about?
Well, I didn't know this myself. I stumbled upon a men's rights website years ago, and somewhere in my research, I saw this thing called MGTOW, MGTOW, and it stands for Men Going Their Own Way. It belongs to I would say they are mostly online, but it belongs to a group of men who say it's not worth it to get married. It's just better to stick to your job and make whatever money you can, and don't be involved in relationships. Don't get married. Don't have kids. You have your guy friends, and that's that. Basically, yeah.
Well, that sounds like a terrible existence. But
well,
to
be quite frank.
Go ahead.
Yeah, to be quite frank, I think if you're a man who has been divorced 2 and 3 times, and you're, as the phrase goes, alienated from your kids, this is your parental alienation. It does happen to you so many times. I think no one would blame that person, any man or woman, from saying, "Listen, I'm done with marriage," because at least you tried it a few times.
Yeah.
But there are some young men who are part of MGTOW, and I think that's it. It's really unfortunate. I mean, if you're a young man in your 20s, you have your whole life ahead of you. But maybe your experience has been that you've seen your dad, maybe some uncles, older cousins, maybe your older friends go through it, and you say, "No way, not me." Then maybe it's not as bad as some people say. Some people will taint those guys as being a bunch of weak losers, but it might not be as simple as that. So it's one of the things I hope to investigate and find out in making this film.
We're talking with Vade Sitaram. He's a Canadian filmmaker. He attended the UCLA Extension, New York Film Academy, as well as attended the Cannes Film Festival. And you've got an extensive resume, sir, and I appreciate what you're doing. Your film called Man Down, A Closer Look at Family Court. Can you give us a few examples of how the court is biased against men? I mean, I think most of us kind of already know that, but are there some specific examples that you address in the documentary?
Well, I'll give you one that to me was the most shocking. I couldn't believe this could actually exist. I stumbled upon an issue called paternity fraud, And when I looked this up, I still couldn't believe it. Paternity fraud is a situation where a father has realized he's been raising a child, and he realizes that he is not the biological father of the child he is raising. So then he tries to get out of paying child support, or he wants to get out of the family, and the court could force him to continue to pay child support. Now, what the law, for example, in California, I believe when you become a dad, you have to go through, you have to sign a piece of paper that says, yes, I'm the father, and I will not question. I think you're also signing away your right to question paternity, but up to, I think now it's been extended to 2 years. So if you can question paternity in the first 2 years of the child's birth, you could get off the hook. But if you question paternity, let's say in year 3 or year 4, when maybe your son you find looks nothing like you, looks like maybe the pool boy or something, now you're wondering, okay, what's going on? If you can prove it by DNA, and this happened to a man by the name of Colonel Smith in Georgia, and he fought to get his case overturned. He fought for a while. He proved by DNA he was not the father of the child he was raising, and the court still ordered him to pay child support.
Wow.
The statistics are all over as to exactly how much paternity fraud exists, different from country to country. But to me, that one was personally shocking. But the other one, maybe the most common one, where men believe there's a bias against men in family court, is, he might have a much more active participation in the family, in raising his kids, as, let's say, his father or his grandfather. But when it comes down, mom will, if not get sole custody, she will definitely get more time. And it is a cliche that most divorces, when there are kids involved, mom will get, he'll go from maybe seeing his kids 7 days a week to maybe 6 to 8 days a month. Mm-hmm. And there's much he can do. And of course, a fight in family court is long and expensive. So I think a lot of men do tend to recoil. They don't want to go broke, and they take whatever they can. And usually it's like I said, maybe 6 to 8 days a month, every other weekend, and maybe a Tuesday, Wednesday night dinner. And that's pretty much it. And a lot of men, and these blogs are incredible, where they what people write, both men and women, what they go through in divorce. And parental alienation is one of the biggest ones. As I think Alec Baldwin wrote in his book, time is one of the biggest weapons that someone who is a parental alienator is one of the biggest weapons someone has. So if mom ends up if she ends up having more time, she has more of an opportunity to tell the child, dad doesn't care about you, or this and that, say some negative things. And a lot of people believe parental alienation, bad-mouthing the child about the other parent, is a form of child abuse. And men do it too. From the research I've done, the National Coalition for Men, they counsel men going through divorce all the time, but they say both men and women do it. But the system, I've definitely spoken to enough people who have said that the system isn't exactly family friendly, to say the least.
Wow. In a perfect world, Vade, there wouldn't be a divorce. I'm just thinking of, as you're going over these situations, I'm just thinking how tragic, it is in the first place. But it does happen. Matter of fact, there is an assumed bias against men, and if you contrast that with the like you were saying earlier, the idea of male privilege, this striving that we have to try to make everything equal. But when it comes to this issue, it seems to, we kind of throw the political correctness out the door, to the point where, it has been said to me, and I don't know if it's ever been said to you, but it's been said to me that if you have a divorce, if you have a broken family, and then you get a situation where the man does get custody, people whisper, well, there must have been something wrong with that woman. There must have been something really bad wrong with that woman for her to not have gotten custody. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. The people I've spoken to, just lay people, I meet them every once in a while, and of course we get to the basic question. So what do you do? And when I tell them what I do on the story I'm making in this documentary, they often tell me the exact same thing. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if there is a bias against men in family court, because I do think people do think, just as you say, if you hear a couple is getting divorced, and dad, he gets custody of the kids. People think, man, she must have done something bad.
Yeah.
It is a common belief, I think.
All right, well, Vade Cedarom, we wish you the best of luck, sir, in making this film. And any time somebody's out there trying to get to the truth, I think it's a good thing, especially on an issue as fragile as this. And we appreciate it, sir. We wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Support it on Kickstarter.com.
All righty, absolutely. And we shared that over at the Conduit News Facebook page, so you can get that link there. Folks, we are going to reset here, going to take a break. We're going to make a smaller clip of this video. We'll put it up at conduitnews.com and our YouTube page. And thank you so much for being with us. Good morning to you. Back in a moment.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
Man, is that why California has such bad wildfires? Because they've got some environmental hesitancies to go in and actually clean out the forest, the underbrush, things like that.
Oh yeah, it's played a huge role in it, and you can just you can pretty much map or chart the wildfire intensity and the wildfire frequency, and a lot of it started when the infamous spotted owl issue began back in the 90s. It took a while for these forests to grow in, but now we're just seeing the results of no management. But fortunately, we're starting to see that change a little bit. I was thrilled to see some sites where there was active management taking place on Forest Service land, and I just.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
So if you look at if you're just joining us, Ben Burris, the orthodontist / dentist, well, the orthodontist who wanted to also be a dentist but wasn't allowed by the licensing board, so then he turned to Senator Jeremy Hutchinson and paid him a bunch of money to change the Dental Practices Act so that he could do what he wanted to do, be an orthodontist and a dentist at the same time. He's been indicted. We're going to get to more information on that. But here's some more information on it. I mean, I'm looking over this, and they have all of the check numbers that Ben Burris wrote from either his Burris DDS account or his Snaggletooth account $5,000 in, this is in 2014 to 2015. May, $5,000. June, $5,000. July, then we had a little break, but then we had 2 in September, October, 2 in December. Each one of these for $5,000. 1 in February, March, April. 1 in June. 2 in June. So he's, if he misses one, if he misses May, he's going to have 2 payments. And then they keep going. So that was 2014 into 2015, all through 2015, all through 2016. This guy giving him $5,000 a month. That's a lot of money. Yeah, then there was gifts as well. In or about June 2014, orthodontist Burris permitted Hutchinson to use a chartered houseboat free of charge. Burris provided free orthodontic services to 3 of Hutchinson. This was all for him to pass legislation. On or about December 29, 2014, Burris allowed Hutchinson and one of his family members to the use of a private plane to fly to Houston, Texas to attend a college football bowl game. August 9, 2015, Hutchinson and a family member played a round of golf as Burris's guests at Blessing Golf Course in Fayetteville, which is in the Western District of Arkansas. On or about October 7th, Burris sent a text message to Hutchinson stating, "Hey, I would love to take Burris's business partner and go play the Oladian Golf Course if you were serious about that. Also, feel free to come play the Blessings again with your family if you want." Anyway, I'm gonna go into this indictment in more detail coming up at 7:05. I'm actually going to tell you where all this started. It started right here in the studio. It didn't all start there, but the first wind that I ever got of it, when I was interviewing Dr. Jim Phillips, really about a separate issue, back in December of 2017, and that's when we first we had somebody just came out and said it straight up. Said Ben Burris paid off Hutchinson to pass the laws he wanted to have passed. We were actually talking about a separate issue about which dentist goes on the licensing board, and we had a lot of dentists at the time, the dentists all across the state, who were very unhappy that for the time, the Governor Hutchinson, had nominated somebody to be on the dental board who was part of one of the these corporate dental operations that are connected, where they go into different states and set up shop. So they're not local. They're not your normal dentist that sets up a practice that's not connected with these kind of what the dentist would call kind of fly by night operations. At least that's the way they're perceived by a lot of the dental community that practices medicine the traditional way, which is you become a doctor, you set up your own practice, and you go to work. So we were talking about that because this particular person that the governor had nominated, not only was he representing corporate dentistry and not your local person, he also had some narcotics violations in terms of prescribing stuff he shouldn't be prescribing. And they're and eventually this guy's nomination was pulled and they went with someone else. But it was in the context of that interview that Dr. Jim Phillips, who used to be the head of the Dental Board of Examiners, said that Dr. Ben Burris had paid Jeremy Hutchinson $6 figures. Well, he didn't say, okay, and that's the thing. In the interview, he doesn't say 6 figures, okay? He said, I have since reiterated this. I have remembered this wrong. I've remembered it correctly, but in the actual interview, he doesn't say Burris paid Jeremy 6 figures. He paid him $5,000 a month for 3 years. But it was off the air. Okay, I was talking to him off the air, and it was, he said 6 figures, and so then I conflated that he had said that on the record. But anyway, it doesn't matter at this point because we have this indictment. It didn't matter a couple of months ago when we had Jeremy Hutchinson Essentially admitting, hey, yeah, I was taking bribes. I mean, he's awaiting sentencing now. I mean, Jeremy Hutchinson is now awaiting sentencing for the tax situation, campaign finance, also the preferred family health care, and this. And the preferred family health care was also about taking money to pass legislation. Who else has been doing this is what I want to know. Who else has been doing this, that we don't know about? When you look at Hutchinson, you look at Woods, you look at Files, you look at Micah Neal, you look at Milton Rusty Cranford, you look at Eddie Cooper, you look at Hank Wilkins. I mean, these are all people who were former politicians, or politicians or former politicians. Well, I don't think Cranford was. Cranford's always been the lobbyist. But this is rightfully being called the largest political scandal in 20 years, but I still think it's going to be even bigger than that. Slowly, the wheels of justice are turning too slow for me. I think they're turning too slow for a lot of you, but they are turning. And so I want to say thanks again to these, United States attorneys in the Western and Eastern District for doing this. Now, what does this mean for somebody like a John Goodson, who was in the paper 2 days ago? This attorney 2 days ago, according to unsealed documents, he was paying Jeremy $20,000 a month. Now, how does this work? Now, I know $20,000 a month, like starting in 2011. These payments, again, started, back in 2014? Is that when the checks say? Hang on, let me look. Started in 2014, 2015, 2016. I guess the last payment was in November 1st of 2016. So a good 3 years. And my goodness, and I said the other day, Jeremy, Senator Hutchinson, was getting $20,000 a month 7 days before the first day of the first year of his legislative service. I mean, is that not incredible? Like, before he's even in the legislature, he's already, getting $20,000 a month from another trial attorney. And can we agree that we're not supposed to get extra money to pass legislation? Can we agree to that, please? I mean, I think we all agree on paper that we shouldn't get extra money. Why didn't we, knowing what we know now, but knowing what we knew then, knowing what we knew back in January, why didn't we take concrete action to make sure that if you are an attorney and you are a legislator, that you cannot do extra work for them and pass bills for your clients? Well, Paul, this is what they said. Well, we don't want to make it impossible for an attorney to be a lawmaker. Okay? Well, let's get real close to that line. How about it? I mean, let's get onerous with it, right? Let's make it onerous. I'm sorry, they're lawyers. They can figure out the paperwork. They can figure out what they need to do. Let's make it hard. I mean, if you're knowing what we know, I'm sorry, yeah, if you are an attorney and you want to be a lawmaker, it's going to be harder on you than it is, let's say, if you do something else. You're in real estate or whatever. Because we clearly have a problem. The loopholes that we have exposed here for years were real, and they were being used against the Arkansas taxpayer so that they can enrich themselves. It's got to stop. Back in a minute.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
Yesterday more as we're seeing a triage operation. I mean, we've got over 80 million acres of federal lands that are subject to catastrophic wildfire right now, and they're treating thousands of acres out here. So you do the math on that, and it's going to take a long time. But what they're focusing on are something called the wildland urban interface. This is where you have home and the forest merging together and doing thinning operations around homes and businesses, and also along utility corridors where you've got these power lines that are in areas that have dead trees and overgrown trees right next to the power lines. That's how the big campfire started. So they're doing projects to thin along the power lines as far as 2,000 feet on each side of the power line. And then also a huge issue out here, and we're so blessed with water in Arkansas that I think we take it for granted sometimes, but these forest fires devastate the watersheds and the drinking water and rivers and lakes where people recreate. They just get hammered by silt and ash and things like that when you get these fires, and then the rains come along or the snow and the snow melt. So that's where they're really focusing right now, is on the and also the transportation corridors along the highways. They're doing a lot of thinning operations along the highways because that's where a lot of fires start. People are pulling trailers and chains drag and create sparks, or somebody throws a cigarette out the window, which I can't imagine people doing that out here, but most fires start
in California. Yeah.
They want to smoke all of their cigarette out here. They don't waste any.
Yeah, deep shame. They would carry that with them for a while. Oh man, we're talking to Congressman Bruce Western.
I mean, it's such a tinderbox in areas. I mean, I don't know what would go through somebody's mind to be driving down the road.
Right.
Like, I'll just flick my cigarette butt out here and burn up thousands of acres.
No, you're right. It is a real concern. I just meant, I'm surprised tobacco is even legal in California.
Certain kinds of tobacco are promoted out here.
Oh, really? I did not know that. The native variety, the marijuana. They smoke that. They smoke a lot of that. Oh yeah, definitely. So you recently, Ryan Norris from he's the Arkansas State Director for Americans for Prosperity. He commended you as well as your colleague Congressman Crawford, who we just spoke to, Senator.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. This is hour number 2, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, we'll be talking with former State Representative Charles Fook. Will be back on the program with us. He sent out an interesting email to a lot of folks talking about globalism. I guess over the weekend that I got, and I thought, hey, why don't I have Charles on? I haven't actually seen him since he presented at the Northeast Arkansas Tea Party a couple of months ago. He did a absolutely fantastic piece on the Federal Reserve. He takes the history of the Federal Reserve, or not the Federal Reserve like as it is now, but the idea of fractional reserve banking all the way back to Babylon and the grain bank. It's really, really fascinating. So we'll talk to him at the bottom of this hour, folks. I got to start this. I got to start this particular hour with some very sad news. Blake Anderson's wife. Blake Anderson is the head football coach of the Arkansas State Red Wolf football team. His wife, Wendy, passed away yesterday, right before midnight. She's had a long battle with cancer. And so, matter of fact, this is what he tweeted out. What time is that? I don't see a timestamp on it, but Coach Anderson, about 5:18 this morning. But final Wendy update, not fighting alone. He writes, there's a celebration in heaven today because Wendy is home. And then he posted this. Go ahead and click on that. My beautiful girl has gone home to be with Jesus. No more pain, no more suffering, and praise him, no more cancer. She passed as peacefully and gracefully as you could ever hope just a few minutes before midnight with me laying right beside her. I've been so blessed to have her by my side each day for the past 27 years. Thank you so much to all who have worked, who have walked, prayed, cried, and loved her through this brutal 2-year battle. Praise him that she hurts no more, and in his presence now and forever. And is in his presence now and forever. Anyway, I want to start that just because, if you guys pray, I would encourage you to pray for Coach Anderson and his family, because this is something that I have been following, just not necessarily here on the broadcast, but it certainly has been something that has been just extremely, it's been a tragedy, is what it is. So anyway, but that is such a great outlook to have, and is the truth, and is also evidence of an eternal mindset versus a temporal mindset. So anyway, our thoughts and prayers go out to really everybody who's affected by this, especially Coach Anderson and his family. By the way, and it's also making headlines all across the nation. USA Today: wife of Arkansas State football coach Blake Anderson dies following cancer battle. So you're going to hear a lot about this story throughout the days to come, I'm sure. And let's hope that tweet actually gets read more and more, because that certainly is a perspective that, you can think about this. You're trying to coach a football team, and we all know the expectations that are on football teams. We all know that we all in this society take football too seriously sometimes, right? And yet that's going on, and his responsibilities there. They announced last night, that he was taking a leave of absence, and the reports were that she was going to hospice, and then of course, we have this terrible news now. But anyway, please pray for the Anderson family. The telephone number is 870-275-9799 if you would like to contribute to the program today. We do have news with Arkansas corruption, as we told you about this a little bit last hour. But Ben Burris, let's go to the Gazette piece. 15 charges have been filed against orthodontist and bribes to ex-Senator Lisa Hammersley with the report. Lisa Hammersley really said that this entire fiasco in Arkansas government has been the largest political corruption scandal in the last 20 years. Who knows if that'll be more. But Ben Burris, she writes, an orthodontist who operated clinics across Arkansas, has been charged with 15 counts of bribing former state Senator Jeremy Hutchinson to pass laws to benefit businesses, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Let's do a flashback. Back on December 14th of 2017, we were interviewing a dentist about basically about the dental board and whether or not the right people were being nominated, whether or not the administration was listening to dentists and were putting on the boards that the consensus around the dental community wanted. And that's why we were covering this story. And then this bombshell gets dropped in the middle of the interview back in 2017. Listen to this.
Ben Burris decided that he wanted to do more than just orthodontics in his practice. He wanted to do general dentistry. At that time, state law, rules and regulations prohibited a licensed specialist from doing general dentistry. Obviously, I'm an oral maxillofacial surgeon, and I haven't done a filling since I was in dental school, which is longer than I'd like to remember, 50 years. So you wouldn't want to come into my office and have me do a fill-in or a crown preparation on you, because it would be probably a disaster. So this is the reasoning behind the state board, that if somebody restricts their practice to a single part of dentistry, then that's by law what they need to stay doing. Dr. Burris decided that he wanted to do general dentistry and hygiene specifically in his practice. Well, this didn't sit well with the general dentist here in town, because he would take their patients and do hygiene in his orthodontic office. Sometimes he would do things that they didn't want to do as far as treatment plans. But the bottom line is this became a significant issue. He was brought before the State Board of Dental Examiners, which basically voted against him and censored him for practicing outside of his specialty. Well, apparently this didn't sit very well with Dr. Burris, because he enlisted the help of a senator, Jeremy Hutchinson.
The governor's nephew.
The governor's nephew. I understand that this was a cash transfer to initiate this legislation to what we call Open the Dental Practice Act. In other words, the Dental Practice Act is like any other law in Arkansas. It can be amended, but it takes a legislative initiation of an act to amend this. We guard the Dental Practice Act because we don't want other people coming in and making laws that the dentists have to follow that are non-dentist. The dentists over the last 100 years have pretty well protected the rights of their patients, and that's always been the number one thing, is protecting the rights of the patients. Didn't have anything to do with making money. It didn't have anything to do with who was giving the services. It was just the patient that always came first. We were always concerned, the general dentist, that if the Dental Practice Act was opened by somebody that was a non-dentist, legislation would occur that was not in the favor of the patient, and that's exactly what happened. The law was introduced by Senator Hutchinson. It was passed last year, and it significantly changed the Dental Practice Act that had been in place for 100 years.
Okay, that right there is a lot. So what? How did that law? So you're saying something was changed in the law that affected the governor's power and authority to reject or accept what the recommendation of the Dental Association is?
That's exactly right. The original law, again, the one that we're working under, was initiated in 1955, stated that the governor would appoint the members of the state Board of Dental Examiners on advice and consent of the separate districts. For instance, we vetted Lauren Harmon, who is a wonderful general dentist here, to be our representative to the state board this term. The terms are 5 years. She actually took time out of our practice.
Okay,
to
stop. This was back, again, December 14th of 2017. That's the past president you're hearing, the past president of the Arkansas State Dental Board of Examiners, Dr. Jim Phillips. We were doing an interview about the dental board itself, and that's when he said, and apparently it was common knowledge among dentists, that it was a, quote, cash transfer from Ben Burris to Jeremy Hutchinson. And so, just want to stop, take a moment. I'm going to take a moment, Joe. And I'm just going to say that, if you want to know what's going to happen, or you want to know some inkling of the future when it comes to Arkansas politics, you need to keep listening to Conduit News. Those of you that are, please continue. But this is just another example of how, in a lot of ways, we're screaming in the wilderness here. Okay? I mean, we talked obviously about those revelations after the fact. But in a lot of ways, we're screaming in the wilderness. This is what it feels like sometimes. I mean, you can go back and you can read articles over at Conduit for Action where it talks about how to cure the influence peddling, and the names that are listed are now people who are in jail. I mean, it took 3 or 4 years, but what was happening, and when you look at who bears from the establishment the brunt of a lot of this criticism, it's people like Conduit News, or it's organizations like Conduit News, who are the ones saying, you guys are corrupt. Oh, you just can't make a blanket statement like that. Oh, okay, well, here's a list. This person, this person, this person, this person. Oh, never mind. That's fine. We'll put this guy as the head of the Revenue and Taxation Committee, even though we know about, all kinds of stuff that's going on. Wire transfers for $80,000 after a tort reform piece of legislation gets done from a nursing home lobbyist. And so, to point that stuff out, you're the bad guy. To point all this out, to expose it, you're the bad guy. You're casting. Don't cast a cloud of doubt across the entire legislature. Well, nobody's wanting to do that. You guys are the ones that are claiming that that's being done, instead of understanding first and foremost that, this is what, if government's too big, this is what is going to happen, because we're all human beings. Okay? And if you're in public office, you should assume that the people around you are going to have a healthy skepticism about what you're going to do in their name. And there's going to be, and I think there should be, a healthy mentality that at any moment you might betray them and not do. And so, I don't think you should give politicians the benefit of the doubt most of the time. You should judge them from one instance to the next, from one issue, one instance to the next, and go by that. And, anytime they come out and say, well, you're trying to, and Jim Hendren did this, Senator Hendren, as he was trying to cover and, act like we were going to do something about ethics that was meaningful in the light of all the corruption, he brings up some organizations want all of us to want everybody to think that we're all criminals down here. It's like, no, not at all. And then he goes and he lists the members and what they're doing in their churches, and it was just, I can't tell you how many politicos didn't even understand why he did that. They just thought it was odd. And anytime they try to say that, well, we're not all crooks, it's like, guys, you guys are blind, you're tone deaf to what we're really trying to do here. We're trying. In a way, politics is guilt by association, but not under the law, and it's up to you to restore the trust. It's not up to us. Don't be mad because we're all upset that, we're the ones being taken advantage of. We're the ones that have to live under these laws that you guys are passing. We're the ones that have to live under the amended Dental Practices Act when Jeremy Hutchinson got all this extra money to do it. We're the ones that have to live under it. You guys are the ones voting for it. You guys are the ones going on there, and you know which ones are on the take. So start talking about it. Right? And when the FBI asks you to wear a wire, wear a wire. Do it. Telephone number 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. 15 charges filed on orthodontists. You can go to the actual indictment here from the United States District Court, Western District of Arkansas. The United States versus Benjamin Burris. By the way, Ben was on the program. I feel like I need to say this. I've interviewed Ben Burris before. I was on his side. I was on his side. I don't see why an orthodontist can't clean teeth. You know what I mean? Come, get your teeth straightened, and by the way, we'll go ahead and clean them too. I'll make more money, but I can do both. I'm a dentist and I've, got a specialty. I don't see what the problem is with that. Now, I know all you dentists out there, no. Now, so I interviewed him when he was censored. I interviewed him on this. I did. I gave him a platform because I thought, I'm for deregulation, okay? That's my position. Now, you guys can disagree with me, but I'm for deregulation. That's why I'm for the optometrists being able to practice more to their scope, right? And the ophthalmologists aren't. Full disclosure, my dad's an optometrist, but I was for Ben Burris. Now, I'm not for doing what he did. Well, that isn't that interesting that you had the licensing board, and then, of course, he takes the illegal step. Because, to get what he wants, and that's wrong. But, this is just pretty fascinating stuff if you really start, stop and think about this. The grand jury charges Benjamin Burris, an orthodontist. Let's get to the actual, what do they say about Hutchinson here? Hutchinson, a former Arkansas state senator. Yeah, they got to do the old introductions. And list the different entities: employee A, person B, person C. Let's see here. Prior to August 17th, an Arkansas law known as the Dental Practices Act stated that any dentist licensed by the Arkansas State Board of Examiners as a specialist, such as an orthodontist, must limit his or her practice to the specialty in which he or she is licensed except in an emergency situation, and that failure to limit his or her practice shall be cause for the specialist license to be revoked or suspended. Beginning in June 2013, the Arkansas State Dental Board of Examiners, state agency responsible for governing dental practitioners and enforcing the provisions, received complaints about Burris. So they kind of lay all of this out, okay? All of this out. Everything that you just heard Dr. Phillips there say. The allegations are this: beginning at the time unknown, but at least as early as or about February 27, 2014, Ben Burris and Jeremy Hutchinson did knowingly and willfully conspire, confederate, and agree with each other and with others known and unknown to the grand jury to commit offenses against the United States, to devise and intend to devise a scheme, an artifice to defraud and deprive by means of material false and fraudulent pretenses, representations, and promises, and to transmit and cause to be transmitted by means of wire communication and interstate commerce any writings, signs, signals, pictures, and sounds for the purpose of executing the scheme and artifice to defraud and deprive, that is, to deprive the citizens of the state of Arkansas of honest services of a public official, namely the honest services of Jeremy Hutchinson as Arkansas State Senator through bribery. So Ben Burris went to Jeremy Hutchinson. The purpose of the scheme for Hutchinson to enrich himself by accepting bribes in exchange for using his official position as an Arkansas legislator to take official action, including but not limited to drafting and introducing legislation and pressuring and influencing other legislators and members of government to benefit Burris's businesses and Burris personally. We've gone way over, but how much more of this is going on, and who's going to step up if it is still going on and file the ethics complaint or go before this new ethics committee that's supposed to actually help? If you didn't do it before, I don't know what's changed to make you do it now. Back in a moment.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
Cotton, for voting against the latest budget. And I think, there's a lot of people who are at least trying, I don't know if they're going to have much luck, but they're trying to get the national conversation refocused on the debt and the fact that our fiscal house is not in order. What's your response to that?
Well, it's not been in order for a long time, and the problem is spending. And I've just beat my head against the wall on that since before going to Congress and while in Congress. And if the first thing we got to do is get the truth out of D.C. and get more transparency in what's actually happening. And there were people just railing against the Tax Cut and Jobs Act bill, saying that it was going to increase the deficit. Well, you can look and see that tax revenue did not decrease with the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. It actually still increased. So the federal government got more money.
Here we go. Yeah. So sorry I went so long there. We kind of up against another hard break. We'll be talking with former State Representative Charles Fuqua coming up here in just a moment. Beto O'Rourke was in Arkansas, though. I want to show you those photos and read you some of the Facebook posts of the people, what they said about Beto O'Rourke. I mean, Robert Francis is his actual name. Kind of perpetuating this idea that guns and insulin are the same thing. I know that sounds weird. Maybe you didn't know that guns and insulin are the same thing. Anyway. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, we got to take a break, though. We'll be back here in just a moment.
Hi, Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
After the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act than it had the year before. The problem is the spending increased a lot more than it did the year before. And the way the Congressional Budget Office scores this stuff is they have a baseline that has a built-in increase in it that might be 5 or 6%. And if the increase in spending isn't as much as CBO projects it should be, then they'll count that as a spending cut. So you could grow spending by 3 or 4%, and CBO put a report out that said you cut programs by 2% because it didn't meet the 5 or 6% built-in rise that they said should take place, and that stuff just doesn't get reported on. So at the time we're spending more money, we have people complaining about why the budget.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Here we go. 870-275-9799. Telephone number if you want to contribute to the program today. Hey, I want to welcome back a friend of mine, former state representative Charlie Fuqua is back with us. Charlie, how are you, sir?
I am good today. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic, sir. I'm doing fantastic. Hey, let me ask you something. Being a former state representative down at the Capitol, I mean, we got a ton of corruption that seems to be like in the headlines every single day about this guy getting bribed and that guy getting bribed, and you know, people are now starting to go to jail. When you were down there, did you sense that level of corruption was going on?
If it was, well, actually, while I was there, 2 state reps went to prison. So I guess it was. As a matter of fact, I asked one guy, Lloyd George was his name, and I believe he did. But anyway, I said to him one time, I heard all kinds of stories about corruption with money and women and everything, and I don't see any of that. Why is that? And he says, it's because of the press. The press tells everything we do. So it may be better than it used to be.
Yeah, that's a scary thought. That is a scary thought if that's true.
Yeah. So when I was there was corruption. I didn't see it. I think the corrupt people knew not to approach me So I never had any offers or anything, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I agree. That tends to be what happens. If they know your values, your principles, you're not even going to get approached because they're afraid you're going to go, tell on them or rat on them and that sort of thing. All right. Well, so anyway, former state representative Charles Fuqua, we always love having you on. I've really appreciated. I've been to some of the Northeast Arkansas Tea Party events that you've presented at. First of all, how are things in Independence County right now? How's the Republican committee in Independence County doing?
Well, just a few years ago, we were a solid Democrat county. Now we have one Democrat on the quorum court, and when he's gone, there won't be a single elected Democrat representing our county, all the way from Donald Trump down.
Wow. That is certainly, part of this shift. It's kind of maybe I think we all experience, especially people in Northeast Arkansas, with the election of Barack Obama. That's kind of what triggered the reddening, if you will, of the state of Arkansas.
Now what we got to do is make sure we get Republicans that aren't corrupt.
This is true. This is true in light of the front page being that, orthodontist was bribing, Jeremy Hutchinson to change the laws. So, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you, Charlie.
Yeah. Corruption goes in both parties. It's money that corrupts.
It certainly is. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, one of the things that you've talked about before, we've talked about fractional reserve banking, speaking of money. We've also, I've heard that presentation, but, you put out an email. You put out an email that I got this weekend that I thought was very interesting about globalism in and of itself. This used to be a word, globalism, that you didn't really hear very often. But now you hear it all the time in terms of, nationalism, the idea of individual countries being sovereign and looking out for their own people versus this idea of globalism that, in order to have, comes at the expense of people and nations.
Yeah. I've been listening to Rush Limbaugh talking about how the globalist elite want to get rid of Donald Trump. And what they hate about Donald Trump is he is a white nationalist. Now, what does that mean? Well, he's a white guy, okay? And he's for nationalism. He believes that there should be nations. And that's what cannot be tolerated. By the way, they can't tolerate black nationalists or Hispanic nationalists. They just want to do away with all nations and all borders. And that's why we see this flood of people from third world countries into Europe and the United States. It's to dilute the population so that the people will be willing to give up their nation and go into a one-world government. And as a matter of fact, what Rush Limbaugh is right spot on in everything he's saying, but he will not, and I think for good reason, because he's afraid he'll be taken off the air, he will not identify who these globalist elite are. And who they are is they are the international bankers headed by the Rothschilds, and their spokesman is George Soros. He's the mouthpiece for them. And we need to understand that, because how can these people have so much impact unless they've got financial power? And it's our banking system, and it's not just the United States, it's worldwide, that gives them so much power. And I just try to get people to understand how that system works, because most people don't understand it. And I want to say this. What really kicked this off in my mind is I have a nephew who's a bright kid. Actually, he's a great nephew. And he just graduated from college, from a state university, with a degree in finance, and he's taken a job at a bank. And I asked him, where does money come from? And he said, the government prints it. And, I know that's what most people believe, but I wouldn't have expected somebody that just got a degree in finance to give me that answer. And here's why that's so bad, that that's what people believe. And it is that all money in existence is created by banks out of nothing. It's just accounting entries, and it's loaned into existence. And before I explain that, let me say this, too. History shows that the Rothschilds, through their agent Jacob Schiff, an American banker, financed the communist revolution. The Rothschilds financed the rise of Hitler. They are now financing the rise of radical Islam because communism has failed, and they want a totalitarian ideology that they can use to propel them to this one-world government.
I do want
Islam. Go ahead.
I do want to point out, Charlie, that you said that Rush won't identify him because he's afraid to get kicked off the air, and then you identify him. I'm not afraid, though. I'm not afraid. I think that's great.
I figured you wouldn't be, or you wouldn't have called me.
That's exactly
right.
And
you know, I guess there's a possibility you could get kicked off the air. But I want to explain.
All this stuff is more mainstream, and you mentioned real quick. First of all, just look at what's going on. I mean, if people want to know about globalism, you mentioned immigration. Third world countries going into these developing nations. There's an immigration crisis in almost every developed nation. So somebody's financing that because that's not a coincidence. There's just no way that you're going to get me to believe that that's all a coincidence that all these countries now are having this crisis at their border.
Yep.
Anyway,
well,
go ahead.
I want to get in. I want to explain where money comes from because most people don't understand where it comes from. There's two levels of money creation. It's at the Federal Reserve or central bank level, and this isn't just our country, it's worldwide. And then, and this is what keeps it hidden from people, it's also in the local commercial banks. People think that when they go to the bank to get a loan, that savers have put money in savings accounts, and then they're borrowing that money. And that's not what's happening at all. For one thing, nobody puts money in a savings account anymore because a savings account is paying, 0.2%, and inflation's 3%. It's a losing proposition. So how the system works is our system is called fractional reserve banking. And this system comes to us from ancient Babylon. That's how old it is. But anyway, the way it works today is people put money in their checking accounts, demand deposits. And if the reserve ratio set by the Federal Reserve is, say, 1 to 10, and last time I checked, that's about what it was, for every $1 million of average daily balance that a bank holds in checking accounts, it can loan out $10 million. Well, now you say, how does it loan out more money than it's got? When a bank makes a loan and they write you the check for that loan, they create that money right there on the spot out of nothing. Well, some people would say they do it with their excess reserves. But they create that money, they loan it to you. Now, what we need to understand is when that money is paid back to the bank, that money is destroyed. It goes out of existence. It was created out of nothing, so when you pay them back, it goes out of existence. But here's the key. The bank earns interest on that money. Okay, now the other level of money creation is when the federal government borrows from the Federal Reserve, which is owned by member commercial banks.
Can I stop you for a second because I have a question? I have a question. So what's the difference between that, what you just described at the local banking level, and say like your traditional Bailey savings and loan?
Okay, that is a really good question. Okay, the Bailey savings and loans was what everybody believes is happening now. People put money into a savings account. They pay the savers one rate of interest, loan that money out at a higher rate of interest, and the bank makes their profit off the difference. Pre-1980, savings and loans were everywhere in this country, and they were doing a great job and performing a great service to the community, But the banking law of 1980 drove them all out of existence. There's none left.
So that's what people think is going on now with banks, but that's not what's going on. I mean, because
that's not what's going on.
No,
and by the way, prior to 1980, banks were already doing what they're doing now. Okay, but they had competition from savings and loans. And the inflation rate wasn't near as high as it is. Okay, now let me go into the second level. The second level is, now remember, the member commercial banks, and not all commercial banks are members of the Federal Reserve, but the member commercial banks own the Fed. It is not a government agency. That is a misconception. And what happens when the government deficit spends, it borrows directly from the Fed. The Fed creates the money by crediting the government's checking account. The money's just created out of nothing, and that money is loaned to the government at interest. Then the people are taxed to pay interest on that debt. Now, this is important. That debt's never paid off. It just keeps growing. So the interest is basically compounding on that. So think about this. All money in existence is created at one of those two levels, either when the Fed loans to the government or when the commercial banks loan to the people.
Wow.
That means all money has to be paid back to the banking system plus interest. How do you pay the money creator more money than it has created? It can't be done. So the only thing that can happen is the money supply must constantly be expanded. And as the money supply is constantly expanded, remember, loans are always being paid off, so money's always being destroyed. So you have to constantly be creating a larger supply of loans and money to pay off the old loans as they come due. So what we have, when you expand the money supply, you have inflation, which means the value of the money is constantly falling. But so what do you have? Who has money? It's mainly older people because they've been working to save it all their lives. So what you're doing, you are destroying the savings of our senior citizens. And at the same time, you're loading an ever-increasing debt burden on future generations.
Wow.
So we have our money system is based on debt. Debt is everything. If there was no debt, there'd be no money.
Wow.
And this is what most people don't understand. As a matter of fact, most bankers have no understanding of this.
Yeah, some of them might be figuring out for the first time that they are creators and destroyers of money.
Yeah. Now, I have talked to bankers that do understand it, and here's what they say. They say, we are the most regulated industry in the world, and that's true. But when the regulations allow you to create money, you're going to follow those regulations, and banks meticulously follow the regulations. I mean, there is no group of people that follow the regulations. And think about this. If your checking account balance is off and you and the bank disagree, who's normally right?
Yeah, the bank. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're meticulous about getting this right.
Yeah, definitely.
But the system is so much to their advantage.
Can I ask you
they're
this?
going to be meticulous.
Well,
yeah.
Can I ask you this about, these current events, and the president and the Fed? The president's relationship with the Fed is certainly one, I think, that is different than other presidents in the Fed, wanting them to, do this or that to the rates. Some people have always said that, the Fed needs to be audited. A lot of people think if they ever are audited, the Fed will be no more. So what are your thoughts about how...
Wait a minute. You just said something that the listeners really need to understand. The Fed was created over 100 years ago. It creates our money supply, and it has never been audited. Let that sink in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Is that incredible?
It really is. But what do you think? With Trump and what he's attempting to do, is he trying to reform this in any way, or is he just trying to get the interest rates cut so the economy does better. What are your thoughts?
Okay, first of all, I find that there are so few people that understand the banking system. I don't know if Trump has any understanding of the banking system or not. It is possible that he doesn't, but let me tell you this. Donald Trump is a genius. He is a very intelligent man, and he may well understand this system, but he may also know the power of the banking system, and he may be afraid to directly take it on in his first term. Okay, but he knows that the Fed can destroy his presidency by bringing on a recession. All they got to do is tighten the money supply. What is a recession? It's when the growth of the money supply slows down. That's a recession.
Yeah.
So the Fed has the power. So he is using the power of the bully pulpit of the presidency to put pressure on the Fed to lower the interest rate and loosen up the money supply so that we don't have a recession. But remember, as we loosen up the money supply, we have inflation.
Yeah, yeah. It certainly is fascinating. But I appreciate your time with former state representative Charles Fuqua. I kind of feel like we have those, or I know we have those on the left who are wanting a recession, so they would want the Fed to do what they need to do, make a political calculation. But hey, you know what I've realized here, Charlie? I've realized that if money is just created, we've got a lot of corrupt politicians that are chasing imaginary, just something that's just imaginary. They want these, they want this money, but
politicians, we all chase it.
Oh, I know we all do, but I just think it's kind of funny when you think about listening to your description of it. How it just has value because we say it has value, and all it really is a digitized representation on a screen, a bunch of ones and zeros.
Yeah, but that'll buy me a new car.
It will. This is true.
Hey, can I mention one other thing? I've written a book. The name of the book is God's Law, the Only Political Solution. My name is Charles R. Fuqua. It's available. You can get it from me. And my email is charlesrfuqua@gmail.com. Or you can get it on Amazon. Just put in my name and the name of the book, God's Law, the Only Political Solution. And what I believe is, if we would just follow God's law, the Ten Commandments, all of our problems would disappear. And why do I believe that? Because God promised it. And God keeps his promises.
Well, he certainly does. Charlie, I appreciate it, sir. It's always great to talk to you.
Okay. Are we finished?
We are. We're finished. We're gonna.
I'll let you go.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Folks, we're going to be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
It's a broken system.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
It's a broken system when you get into the details of it, Paul.
What are your thoughts?
And it's
what are your thoughts, Congressman, on the trade deal with Mexico and Canada? Nancy Pelosi doesn't seem to want to do anything on that, right? But it's a big deal.
That deal that could have been signed into law 2 months ago. There's bipartisan support in the House and the Senate to pass it, and Pelosi won't put it on the floor. It's maddening to me that something that could be that critical to the economy, and we can't even get it on the floor to vote on it. So, the only thing there's one kind of official reason that I've heard is that she doesn't want it to pass without a majority of Democratic votes.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio.
Oh, look at
with
this real
Paul
quick.
Harrell.
We got your meme of the day here in just a minute, but I want to rehash. Beto O'Rourke, Robert Francis, was in Arkansas at a gun show. He posted this: insulin costs $450 a month, and AR-15 costs $395 for a lifetime. It shouldn't be more affordable to kill than to stay alive. Wow! Assuming that if you purchase an AR-15 that you're a killer. Here's the photo. You see this photo here from a Facebook user, Jared on Facebook, talking about, well, I was there today at the gun show. Most people didn't know who this clown was, and they weren't advertising it either. Once word got out that they were there, they left rather quickly. It was a setup for an anti-gun agenda. Look at this right here. Look at this photo of this gun show. Was it in Conway? Is that where it was? There's Beto O'Rourke in Arkansas, and there is a sign that just says AR-15, $395. So he's just wanting people to, I guess, come up and engage with him. But I'm told that there were some people that attempted to, but he didn't actually want an honest conversation. And honestly, if you're posting something like insulin costs $450 a month and AR-15 costs $395 for a lifetime, it shouldn't be more affordable to kill than to stay alive. I don't think you're really wanting to have an honest conversation about guns, gun-free zones, or red flag laws for that matter. Like, you really want to have an honest conversation about it if that's what you're doing. But anyway, so there are the photos there. And go back to that other one. Go back to that other one where there's the Trump flag in the background. No, keep going. I see the Trump flag, but there's Beto O'Rourke talking with some Arkansans. But then you've got in the background there a Trump 2020 sign. I just think that's interesting. He probably was uncomfortable. He probably saw the guns and was afraid. Here is your meme of the day, courtesy of an Instagram user. This Instagram user goes by the name outlaw_USA. Outlaw.USA outlaw. We'll post it up at the Conduit News Twitter and Facebook. It is a tire. The tire has a thought bubble above it that says, I have dirt on the Clintons. And the next thing you know, it's a tire swing. It's the tire's now hanging in a tree. So, anyway, we'll post that. Yeah, it needs to be a paper rope. Folks, thanks so much for being with us. We'll have more news. We want to talk. I didn't get to talk about the ophthalmologists getting their ballot title approved. Try to strike off the deregulation of optometry here in Arkansas. We'll rehash that as well as much more tomorrow on the show. Thanks so much for being with us.